Well, Ash, thank you for taking the time to join Lessons from Learning Leaders. I appreciate you being here.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
So I start these things the same way. I think we all have a training story of where we started, where we're at today. So would you mind telling us your story?
Well, if I'm going to be talking about a story, I would say I never wanted to be a trainer. So just happened that
You
way.
know, you're not the
I think
first person to say that on here.
I think so, yeah. before before hopping in, I was actually watching Katrina Kennedy's video. So yeah. Looks like there are a lot of people are facing the same issue or predicament. Well, I think my story is going to go back a bit to when I was probably 18, and it starts with the Model of United Nations. If you ever heard about that one, it's
Hmm.
yep, okay, good. You saved me time on explaining it. So I accidentally went for Mall of United Nations, and in our country, I come from Cairo, Egypt. In our country, is not only one person per delegation, is two people in a delegation. So it would be me sitting in the back, nerding and getting all the data, and a guy in the front who's my partner, who's talking and doing all the debates and the discussions and everything else. And what happened is during the conference, on the first day he was there, second and third day he wasn't. So
Oh,
I had to step in and I had to start talking. And that was a huge problem because I have severe, or I had severe public speaking problems. I cannot stand in front of people and say a couple of sentences for the life of me. So what happened is that I stood up, said a couple of sentences, literally a couple of sentences. I was representing Iraq at that time. If I remember, it was the World Economic Forum, and I said that Iraq condemns this resolution paper, and I just sat down. And the secretariats were like, good job, we want to hear more of you. Well, for the rest of the conference, I didn't say anything else. I just left it for caucusing and speaking on the side, but I did not say a thing afterwards. And then the idea that was overwhelming to me is that I would never do this. I want to work for the United Nations. That was completely overtaking my life and everything that I would think about. And accordingly, my background's in human resources management. I never wanted to work in human resources. My minor is in economics. Never wanted to do that as well. And fun fact, my graduation project was actually about training and development, but that was just the easiest thing to do at that time. So I worked in HR for literally 3 months, and then the UN job came and loomed. So I went for it. I was working for UNESCO in the scientific department as a quality assurance manager for something called the ICDL, the International Computer Driving License. Basically, uh, basic lessons and skill set to educate people on how to use computers and how to use tech back when tech was a thing at that time that would actually help you do whatever that it needs to be done. I'm talking back in MySpace age. MySpace and Paltalk and ICQ, MIRC, that kind of age. So yeah, um, I stayed there for a couple of years, and afterwards, or actually within it, I had to do a couple public speaking for the UN, and I started to get a hang of it. Then, by absolute chance, serendipity played its role here. An ex-manager of mine, when I was working during my college days, said, hey, they're looking for a trainer. Would you like to try it out? Go for the interview. I'm like, are you happy in your job? Well, my job is pretty stagnant at this point, and I don't think that I would continue staying at at UNESCO, because my dream was to be at UNDP, United Nations Development Program. And I did my master's for that reason, but I never got the chance. Got into training
yet.
by
You
absolute
never got the
chance.
chance
Yeah.
yet.
Well, I don't. I mean, it was always that hidden thing that I would one time go back to NGOs and work for the UN, but I think that ship has left long time ago
All
with the
right.
line of work that I'm doing now. Um, so yeah, I went in as a junior trainer, stayed there till I became training and development manager. But deep down, I never really liked being on stage or delivering training. Am I a good trainer or a bad trainer? I'm an okay trainer. That's how I see it. But I always had this near and dear part of me that is more into research. I want to be the nerd, the person that works at the back end. But in my country, instructional design was not known. It wasn't a thing. It was more like, oh, you're the guy that does the slides. No, no, no. I'm working in training and development. It wasn't L&D at that time. I was training and development back when it was ASTD, not ATD. So back in 2014, I took part in doing train the trainer, and I've been doing train the trainer programs since 2014 till now. I'll let you know how that happened. But I was part of a team. We're 4 trainers delivering this. And during that time, I was the guy that creates the content. I was the guy that does the research. So it's okay. What am I interested in? I'm more interested 60% in creating content. Left it. And okay, there's nothing here for creating content. I might lean more on the research part. So I took my track into organizational L&D. So competency matrices, assessment centers, consultancy. And I did my part in that, but still didn't find my place after I left my job. And then I went to Vodafone to work there also in people development. And I just left everything and I was like, okay, I'm going to do freelance consultancy and training gigs on the side until I found a job that happened before I got married, which was for a company. Now, this company is actually a competitor to me in the market, but back then it was an opportunity to be a product manager. So a product manager is that I'm responsible for a board game of their design. They do homegrown games and I would deliver it. And also I would assist with content development if so. Moving on, I became the R&D manager. Moving on, I became the business partner. Moving on, we had a dispute. I left the company. 7 months later, I opened up my own. And my own company is that, okay, I'm the ID guy. I want to be here in my room with my screens and I just want to do my thing. But instructional design, again, is not a thing. Now, the awareness has spread. You get a lot of titles in the Middle East that are IDs. They're IDs. They're developers. They're designers of all sorts and kinds. But then I didn't have. So it was a lot of self-studying, a lot of exposure to the North American market, to the European market, to the Asian market, to understand what's happening. And afterwards, I started to situate my own form of practice and what I should do. And I found myself not more into the e-learning part, more into the research and creation part. And I fell in love with the concepts of systems design. I say that a lot, which led me to gamification. So my company is pretty much focused on gamification systems, building business board games, customizing games for corporate and also for learning providers, whether you're a competitor to me or not. And we do also workshops. And the Train the Trainer thing was my first design to present to the market. Fast forward 8 years now, we have over 300 graduates, and they make up the community that we call the Catalyst community. So what happens is that over time, I have a pool of trainers that I can use to do delivery instead of me. So I could stay here and do my thing. And that was the dream. Well, it's not fully achieved because clients still sometimes ask for me by name, which is something that I hate. I'm like, see this guy, see that gal. They're so much better. Trust me. So I would push them and push them and push them to the extent that now I'm not into it. Can I train? I can train. Would I rather design? Yes, I'd rather design. I'd rather design.
So
than
for those who may not know, what do you mean by gamification? How do you define that? What's that mean?
Okay. Well, gamification has many different definitions, okay? Because I wouldn't say that gamification is a science. Gamification is more of a practice, like how training is not a science. Training is a practice, and it stems out of different science niche. I mean, it comes from psychology, it comes from neuroscience, it comes from management practices, and so on and so forth. So gamification is basically the simplest format to it is that you are trying to add elements and components that belong to the game world and try to motivate the user towards a specific outcome, behavior, or a specific action. That's why gamification is not done for learning per se. It could be done for sales, it could be done for marketing, it could be done for any form of fields or industries or markets. But when we're talking about learning, I am trying to motivate the learner to get to the learning objective. And when I'm saying motivate the learner, not that I'm trying to push motivation. What I'm trying to do here is that I'm using components that would nudge the learner to do a specific act in a specific format within a specific border. The way I explain it, though, is that gamification is about input, output, and within or in between, there's an artificial conflict that you will create. That conflict is bordered by rules and setup and regulations, all towards achieving the learning objective. So that's my take on it.
Good. So at the Core 4 coming up, you're delivering something called Structuring Learning Games Ideas Without the Guesswork. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about that?
Okay. Well, since I said that there isn't a specific gamification definition, there's also another area that is pretty gray, which is how can I learn about gamification? You could scour books, scour podcasts, look up on the internet the different things that are related to gamification. You could even go on Coursera and EDX and all of the other MOOCs to get to it. But even after you do all that, there's one main thing you cannot find. How can I start? What should I do? I get lost in the buzzwords, the gimmicks, the lingo, the issues, and okay, give me a head start. Okay, tell me what to do first to initiate that process. And that has been the thing that has been weighing on my mind for years. So back in 2019, I came up with something called the Alchemist or the Alchemy framework, where you could turn, well, lead to gold, which is turning your training program into gold, which is gamification. Fast forward 6 years afterwards, and that became Penta, not Alchemist anymore. Alchemist is like the grandfather of it, the ancestor, but now it's Penta. So Penta is not going to help you be a game-based learning designer, because that's honestly, man, it's a false promise. There's something that Monica Cornetti from Sententia did
Mhm.
say before, is that almost every person that works in the gamification spectrum has their own framework or form of application. And when you look at it from the outside, you feel like we're a cult. You don't know how to get in, you don't know how to pledge, and you don't know if you did pledge, will you get accepted or not? And when I do what I should do for you, will it be proper? Will it be effective? So Penta has been that key to me, that I'm not going to teach you everything about gamification, but I'm going to do the one thing that is extremely hard: how to start and how to come up with ideas. Because after you come up with an idea and develop, you still need to iterate, you still need to prototype, you still need to do play testing, and then get something at the end. I am working on that specific part: how to come up with something that can bridge from having learning objectives to a solid concept. That's the area, that's the very tiny area that I'm focusing on. And I've noticed that many people do need that area. So why not to focus on that? And when we're talking about gamification, gamification is basically a play of behavioral science. It's okay, you've understood the learning objective, good and well. Okay, that learning objective is knowledge. Now, how can you manipulate that knowledge in a bordered system and create that artificial conflict? That's why the cards are why, which is what kind of topic, what kind of learning objective are you hitting at? How talks about the mechanics, which is the byproduct of the use of behavioral science in learning. Then let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the appeal, the lore, the plot, the characters. All of that is, again, part of behavioral science, because it has story bias, it has picture superiority effect, it has visual framing bias, and so many different areas. And many people cannot really form a story. So let me help you and give you recommendations on how to do stories that could fit for a game. Then the aesthetics. People sometimes overlook the aesthetics. I call the aesthetics the experience part. Experience, again, could either override a learning experience or it can amplify and help it come to life. So the experience part, again, stemmed out of behavioral science. And it talks about the colors, the color definition, talks about the use of aesthetics, the animation, the hovering, the tactics, the physical cues, all of the things that people can experience to be able to interact with the game system. Then the nudge, which is the toughest one and one of my favorite cards. It's how to sustain engagement with the system throughout the duration of the game, whether that will be through, well, the infamous progress bars or the leaderboard, but there are a lot more than this. There's also default mechanisms. There's also near failure effect and near win effect. That's something called the cascade information theory. So many different formats that can help you do that nudging. And when I built up the card system, every card has what it is, why to use it, and an example. Then when you scan the card, it gives you the back end from a learning perspective and a behavioral science perspective, and also an example on how it's being showcased in learning. So I'm trying to make something that would be asynchronous, a design thinking tool that could be with anyone, that could help that person or group, solo or in teams, to come up with a solid learning game idea. Because that, to me, is the toughest thing.
This when you said earlier, when you do the research and you look around, I'm sure most people who go looking for gamification ideas, one of the first things they'll see, and I've seen this so many times, is, oh, well, we'll just open PowerPoint and make a game of Jeopardy, and that'll be our game. And this is so much more robust than just making a PowerPoint slide or even a series of slides on Jeopardy. Why is this so important to you, I guess? Why is this such a passion of yours?
To me, the whole thing, well, it's a great question, I must say. To me is a couple of things. Number one, when you're telling people that a Jeopardy game or a matching game or a categorizing game is going to be a gamifying aspect, let's look at it here. When you're solving Jeopardy, you're trying to let people memorize right from wrong, not how to act. When you're doing, this is the SOP and the right answer, you're trying to let them memorize a flowchart, not apply the processes. When you're trying to let them click on a game that looks like a Super Mario or Tetris, you're just begging them to solve the answers, click, and let's jump, not click, and let me ponder and think, and let me see your thought process. And also, when you're making a game that is more of a game and it's more of a game than it's a learning, then you're nudging and motivating people towards a totally different outcome and perspective. So from that end, that's a problem. The other end is that you're making a false promise to your client. You're making a false promise to your learners. You're promising them learning, while instead you're promising them confetti and you're promising them with zhuzh, not something that they could capitalize on and make use of. And that's my problem. Well, instead, gamification is about systems thinking. It's a influx, outflux. So I want input, which is the players or the users or the learners, to do a certain thing within borders, whether that border is simulating reality or subverting reality. So simulating, I'm taking a copy paste mimic. So they're building up on their vicarious understanding. Once they're done with the game, they can offboard back to the workplace. When I'm doing subvert, I could do, when subverting, a game about knights, dragons, a conquest, a civilization building. But the process, the logos, the logic that they're using is the core, not the aesthetic. The trick here is to be able to balance between that story part and not make it overweigh or basically eat up the learning part. So they're more interested in this because it looks like a 10 rather than they're actually applying a process or they're applying a template or a use or a technique or something that they can use on the job. So Jeopardy, Tetris, vibe coding, chicken invaders. Yeah, people are having well, happiness and hedonism and a form of entertainment. But are we really looking for entertainment, or are we looking for fun that equals achievement or trying to overcome a challenge? That's my problem.
So in your mind, this is more than just a tool to transfer information or make sure that information was retained. You're creating opportunities for them to actually apply what they've learned in this training. And I think the importance of that is that if you apply it in the training, it's more likely that you'll apply it will transfer then from the classroom or from the computer to the field where it needs to be applied. Is that the idea?
Ex- Exactly, because the number one thing when we teach the actual framework is that we tell them how to frame the learning problem. So when we're framing the learning problem, we really need to understand norms, incentives, rewards, friction that is happening within their organization or within what's happening with them. And then I want, when I'm doing a game, to not reward them for doing the same, but reward them towards the thing that would bridge the performance gap. If I am doing something that would reward them to give me polished answers or to 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 um, to prioritize speed over accuracy, I am letting them have an entertaining time, but I'm not meeting the business requirements. As much as I'm learner centered, I'm also business centered because gamification, whether you like it or not, it's more expensive. Okay. Because it takes more time for me to do, to test, to sell. And when I sell it, there are a lot of expectation. Last but not least, instructional design or instructional systems design rides highly on minimalism, minimal necessary knowledge, exactly as how Kathy Moore, God bless her, did say, minimum necessary knowledge to act, not just knowledge acquisition, but I need skill application to lead towards process improvement or performance improvement. If I'm only dumping knowledge or the game is just offering an opportunity for them to test their memory, I'm building on their memorizing and their entertainment, but I'm not really looking into how they're going to be able to retain it and utilize it afterwards in the workplace. Carl Kapp did mention before, the biggest problem with any learning program is offboarding. And I always say this in almost every presentation. And when Carl was actually in front of me one time in a presentation, I was saying this while I'm shivering because there he is. And yeah, he's a great friend and a great mentor as well. Yeah, offboarding. People do not think about offboarding. Like, how am I going to be done with this gamification or not, and take that and use it when needed at the workplace? Gamification can be a really good tool for that if done right. Not saying that everything that I would do is right, but if done right.
You said something there that made me smile, made me laugh when you said you were standing there shivering, and I thought, is
Okay.
there any more intimidating audience for a trainer than an audience full of trainers? And, for me, I'm just like, "Ugh, yeah." Well, we got about 5
Well,
minutes left. I wanna make sure that you
it's
have an
awful.
opportunity to yeah, it is. It is awful.
It
It's just
is because if a trainer told me that they're not afraid every time they deliver, I would never believe them. Or you're too hubris. You're too cocky and obnoxious. We're afraid each and every time. But when I'm standing there and I have Carl and I have Lauren Waldman, she's a good friend as well, and I have so many people from L&D just watching me, and Karen North was there, and so many other people that we know were there. I'm like, oh my god, I know you guys, and we talk, we're friends, but standing in front of you and saying something, I was dying inside. But then they gave me good feedback, specifically Carl, God bless him. So yeah, it's always terrifying, specifically when
it
there's a
is.
group of trainers in front of you.
Alright, so let's say someone's watching the podcast and they wanna work with you, Mo. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, I use LinkedIn for business. So people, if they want to contact me on my LinkedIn, there's also our website, thecatalyst.experience.com. I did have Substack, but I'm not very active. But I do have a little bit of a tiny following there, so people could also reach out to me on Substack if they need. So LinkedIn, the website, and Substack, I'm more than happy to reply to whatever.
I will go find you on Substack. That's where this is published, is on Substack. So I'll go find you on Substack and I'll subscribe. And I encourage everyone else to also. Well, Mo, you're going to
Thank you.
be in LA at that Core 4, is that right?
LA was ICE,
Okay.
ATD International Conference and Exhibition, I suppose. And ATD Core is in Indianapolis.
Okay. It's a good
And to
town.
everyone
I like
listening as
you ever
well,
been to
do
Indianapolis?
apply for ATD 27 because we're only one day away. Only one day away.
Well, I hope you enjoy Indianapolis. It's one of my favorite towns. I actually lived in Indy for a few months while I was going to school there. It's
Wow.
a good town. I enjoy it, and I wish
It
you
will be my
well
first
there.
time.
So, Mo, I appreciate enjoy. It's
Thank
a
you.
nice town. Uh, Thank you again for taking the time to talk with us about this today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and give me the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for that.